IVM.
We would like to thank Storytel for sponsoring this show. Storytel is an audiobook platform that lets you hear hundreds of thousands of stories on your PC, mobile, wherever you prefer. You can get a great deal for IVM listeners at storytel.com/IVM. This week I'm going to recommend The Ivory Throne by Manu Pillai. This is a book about the history of Kerala. Manu is an incredible writer and helps you truly understand the history of the region. I first heard him talk about this book on the Filter Coffee podcast with Karthik Nagarajan, and I couldn't wait to dive into this one after I heard that conversation. So, how do you get this book? Go to storytel.com/IVM, and what you'll do is when you sign up over there, instead of $2.99, you'll get your first month for 99 rupees. So you get $200 off on your first month. Go to storytel.com/IVM and go check out The Ivory Throne by Manu Pillai. Great book.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. And I'm Siddharth Deshmukh, your friendly neighborhood traveling professor himself. This Thursday, it is my last diary entry. Hopefully the flight does take off and I have a smooth landing in Mumbai, wherein I'll be in quarantine making more diary entries from quarantine. But this certainly has been the end of a wonderful, wonderful 6 months that I spent with my family in London. And it is going to be bittersweet. I look forward to India and all of the warm weather and hopefully no lockdown situation. But London obviously is where the heart is, where the family is. So I will be shedding a tear or two when I go to Heathrow as I await my flight to take off. But I thought I will slip in a diary entry of mine. And this diary entry of mine is aimed towards talking about user experience. Now, user experience, customer experience, is so much spoken about in today's day and age that it seems like really weird that, I should be even adding my 2 bits to it. But I've realized that a lot of people become technical about it. And a lot of people confuse the fact that it is not only about designing the user interface, but it is actually about designing the entire user's journey towards the product and even after the product experience, which lies in the purview of actually developing something called user or customer experience. Now, as I settle comfortably, I wanted to tell you something really interesting about the way in which I look at customer experience. And I look at customer experience design as story design. Yeah, you heard that right. So the fact is that unless and until you are able to create a story around your brand, around your product, around your service, which kind of encompasses a lot of the so-called before and after situations and not just the product usage or the interface experience, you're going to be lost. The reason why you're going to be lost is because in today's day and age, when there are so many competing products and you can very quickly replicate whatever technology capabilities your competition would be bringing to the table in no time at all. The real difference is in the story that actually makes more sense in the mind of a customer. And that is gold as far as a marketer is concerned. A marketer is extremely interested in the way in which, his product or his brand or her product, is to be actually experienced by the target group. But most of the times we focus as marketers on brand image rather than brand experience. And when we say brand experience, we try to just improve the place where the experience is experienced, to be honest. Like, for example, maybe if I'm having coffee, I'll design the coffee shop experience, or if I'm in an airport, I'll design the airport experience. But hey, how about designing the entire journey between booking a ticket down to the airport, or how about designing the entire journey between having a thought of coffee with a friend to the coffee shop itself? Now that includes us understanding how the consumer journey is and the kind of story that we can actually communicate to the customer in order for the customer to be really interested in our brand. So why is the story so important? A story is important because it allows the customer to integrate that brand into their own stories. Because you see, as human beings, we love actually putting meaning to everything. And the most important thing is ourselves. So we love to create a backstory for ourselves, which, creates us looking like a superhero rather than an extra. So we love to have a story, we love to have a frame with which we see ourselves, and we are either subconsciously or consciously connecting to that story whenever we are experiencing life. So when we buy our own pair of shoes, or when we tie our shoelaces of those shoes, we are participating in story creation. So our brands as marketers better actually fuel that story creation. If they remain majorly meaningless and not adding to the story that the customer, your target customer, actually is trying to create for herself or himself, then you are lost. The art of story creation actually appeals to both the subconscious and the conscious mind. Of course, consciously, you need to be able to, state something about your brand that makes sense for a person to be aware and say, yes, when I wear this jacket, I feel like a really, cool person, and the rest of it. But it's also subconscious, right? It's also subconscious. Something just clicks through in your subconscious, that story clicks through without you perhaps even realizing it, because that framing is happening even when you're not aware of it. I think story creation is at the heart of developing any customer experience, because it broadens the scope. It kind of pulls in more of the customer journey. It goes beyond the brand, it goes beyond the product, and it allows for a customer to embrace the brand not just as a commercial thing, but as if it's an extension of her or his own story that we all feed ourselves. So whenever you're designing any customer experience, start with the story. Understand the story of the customer. That's the first step. And the second step is to actually see how you can create your own brand story that can integrate into the customers. I hope this provokes some thoughts. I really think that it becomes a very important discipline for us, especially in a time wherein there is parity amongst products. And I hope that a lot of marketers can perhaps use this sort of thinking and approach when they look at, creating or crafting the way in which their brand experiences are. And on this note, I'd like to say, well, I hope you all wish me a happy journey. And if you want to follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn, in a few days, the Traveling Professor will return with his podcast, and also with Traveling Professor Investigates, which is a video series that I do put up. So do look forward to that. And if you like IVM Podcast Wala Podcast, then go to ivmpodcast.com or go to the app, or just go to wherever you find your podcasts and look out for the stuff that is created by IVM. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Until next time then, see you soon.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Storytel and The Whole Truth Foods. Thank you for supporting us. So, great week on the network again this week. Definitely do check out the Pragati podcast. Pavan spoke to Krish Ashok. They discussed science, knowledge, and the wonder of Indian home cooking. Staying in the realm of food, on This Round Is On Me, we had A.D. Singh as a guest. Gauri and A.D. discussed the 10 years anniversary of The Table and the 20-year anniversary of Olive. So two of Bombay's biggest restaurateurs have a conversation about the restaurant business. All Things Policy celebrated 500 episodes on January 27th. Manoj talks to Aditya and Anirudh about the surprising origins of the podcast, its evolution over the last few years, and its exciting future. This episode also marks their video debut, so definitely do check that out on YouTube. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Ranjit Pratap Singh. Ranjit is the co-founder and CEO of Pratilipi. Pratilipi is a company that's recently acquired IVM, and Ranjit on this episode discusses his plans to build a homegrown media empire, his love for comics, and how India can have its own comic cinematic universe. And finally, Cyrus had an exciting week. We had some amazing guests this week. We had Vishal Gondal come and talk about Fauji. We had Atish Tathir talk about the various issues that he had been facing with his OCI card and other things like that. We had Adam Dow talk about things going on in the US and the evolution of what's happening there. We had Siddharth Kannan come and talk about his history with Cyrus and his new show. So definitely do come check that out as well. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
पेशे खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshit. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Naan Curry podcast every Wednesday, सिर्फ IVM podcast ऐप या वेबसाइट पर, या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.